last week there was this report that came out, or this article that came out about how Square Enix is like really going to push the demand to go global, to push their games business, because there's a trend of graying demographics in Japan, basically meaning that they're hitting their ceiling with their profits and what they can make in Japan. I read the article. Basically breaks down Square Enix saying that, you know, with production costs rising and all that kind of thing, everything's more expensive to make now, and it's only going to go up. And Square Enix is trying to figure out how to maximize the rest of the world, not just the Western audience, but the rest of the world, like globally. We're going to break it down. I think what they said a few months ago about really needing to get back to basics about what they do, and saying this, it seems like a contradiction, but I feel like both can be true. And I saw a lot of like knee-jerk reaction, people saying, oh, this is contradicting what they said, or oh, this is going in a different direction what they said just a few months ago. That could be, but I'm gonna offer you another possibility, and it's an optimistic one. So if you look at the success of a few of Square Enix's titles they've released, Final Fantasy XIV, even the Dragon Quest series has been moderately successful in the West. Of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake, the Kingdom Hearts stuff, that stuff's all been super successful. I think they're looking at now a little bit, not worry, but caution about unknown IPs like Forspoken and some other titles they have coming out that they really want to do good globally. Now, what does this mean? This does not mean they're going to be changing all of their plans, changing what they do, how they tell their stories in their games. It could, but I don't believe that's what they're talking about. I think what they're talking about is better translations, better dubbing, simultaneous releases for a lot of their titles. A lot of their titles do, but most of them don't. I think across the board, Square Enix wants to get down to business about making sure that if a title comes out in Japan, a title comes out globally. I think that makes good business. And from a business sense, I think that's what they're talking about here. Also, it also seems like there's a lot of games that don't get released over here, like a lot of mobile games, a lot of like quirky humor type games. I think they'll still do, but not as much of, because that takes resources, that takes human work, that takes human hands on the project to do it. I think they want to pull those hands off of some of those smaller things, some of those niche things that they release in Japan, and put on working on more of the titles they want to get out for the rest of the world. I feel like that's what they're talking about, because if you look at Square Enix over the past couple of years, especially since COVID, once they figured out how to work remote and maximize their remote potential with their workforce, you can see in the way they release their games and the things they say, and we're not talking about the NFT stuff, that, you know, and that will play a factor in some of what they're doing, and that could be why they're wanting to push more globally. But I don't think that's a factor here. I think they want to set a foundation. And if you look at how they've worked their people, how they've moved things around, they moved assets around, as far as like if you look at, you know, workers and employees as assets, which they are for a company. They move them around, they put them on different projects, they pull from this one to put to that one. I think they want to do less of that. I think they want to have a set team at the beginning of each project to the end of each project, not pulling from this one, pulling to that one. And that's going to be reallocating resources, reallocating your assets, again, your people, from the jump. So you're going to have less of the smaller titles, less of the quirky kind of titles that Square Enix puts out in just Japan. And they're going to focus on putting those people on more of the games they want to work globally. Now, what does that mean for, say, games like Star Ocean, Dragon Quest, some of the other smaller titles that they have? Nier. I know a lot of people love Nier, but it's not as big as like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts and even Dragon Quest. It could be. Now, I think that Nier is a title that they look at and say, with a little more polish and some work, this could be on the level of a Kingdom Hearts or a Dragon Quest. This could be our next big franchise that we could unleash on people. And the sales, the numbers back that up. So I think part of this is them looking at the titles they currently have. and they're saying, how can we take what we're doing here and make it more attractive globally for everyone? So I don't think this is them going back on their word, what they said a few months ago. I don't think this is them saying, we really wish we hadn't sold off those studios. I haven't seen anybody say that, but it's in that vein. So I don't think this is them going back on what they said a few months ago about really wanting to get back to basics, kind of basically about who they are and making the best Japanese role-playing game that they can. That's not them going against that. I feel like this is them saying, how can we make the JRPG more globally accepted? How can we market it? How can we produce them quicker and maintain the quality? How can we raise the level of what we're doing? So I think internally they're having these conversations, which is a great thing. It's more about, to break it down, this is more about making the JRPG like mainstream. How can we make JRPGs that we do, that what we're good at? How do we take what we're good at and make it mainstream globally? Not just make it a niche audience. How do we take these games and make them popular to people who like God of War, who like The Last of Us, who like, well, I'd say Call of Duty, but I don't know. I think Call of Duty's for not people who would ever play a JRPG. Some do. I'm not trying to pigeonhole people, but Call of Duty is such a huge locked-in base that I feel like that's what that base is. But especially with what Square Enix is doing now, trying to make the JRPG mainstream, and I think the big catalyst to that, I think it's going to be Final Fantasy XIV. I think they see the numbers that Final Fantasy XIV is doing, and I think this is the thing that's making them say, hey, this is very popular. How can we make this game continue to grow? We have to make this more globally accepted. We have to have people all over the world playing this game. It has to be Warcraft. It has to be World of Warcraft. Say what you will about Warcraft, Activision, all that kind of stuff, but at its peak, nothing could touch that game. Nothing was even close to that. And I think that's what Square Enix wants to do. I feel very comfortable saying that's what Square Enix wants to do. But I think that's all this is. I don't think there's any need for worry. I don't think this is them contradicting themselves or aiming a contradiction. I don't believe it's anything to do with that. I think it's them saying, okay, now we're getting back to basics. We're making good games to great games. We're fixing that part of things. We're getting back to who we are. We're finding our identity again. Now, how do we take this and sell it to the rest of the world? It's going to be marketing and PR. I don't think it's going to be... They'll change some things in the game to be thematic, to be more, cognizant of what's going on with other people in the world and different concerns people have outside of Japan. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be political or anything like that, but more cultural. I think they're going to, take bits of this part of the world's culture, this part of the world's... which they already do. So I don't think that's too much of a stretch. That's why I say it goes back to just making sure that their marketing and their PR are tight, making sure that the project directors are tight, making sure that project directors and project producers are in simpatico as soon as the project starts. Timelines, deadlines, then making sure that your translations and everything are on point. And the lip dub thing, it's not a big deal to me, but if you're wanting to target the casual audience is not going to be cool with that. You got to fix it. I'm cool with it because I've been playing JRPGs for years, and I'm used to the lip dub thing not working out. It doesn't bother me. I don't even notice it anymore a lot of times. It is jarring when you play a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake or even Final Fantasy 16 coming up. Looks like the lip sync is good. It is jarring when you go from that to like a Star Ocean, but for like a minute, and then you're out of it. So, but for a casual fan, that's something you'll need to fix, and I think that's one of the things they might be talking about. Anyway, no cause for concern on this. I think this is all it is. Could be wrong as always, but I think from a business standpoint, I think this is what they're talking about. So anyway, Throw a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of good stuff, and you'll have a great day. Be safe, be good to each other, keep rocking. I will see you all in the next video. Take care. I want to say a quick thank you to my YouTube and Patreon members and supporters. If you would like to support the future creation of content on this channel, get some few extra perks and some art sent to your door every month, consider becoming a Patreon or YouTube member. Details and links are in the video description.